Hello. I'm going to be going live in a minute. But for now, I have to figure out how I do this. Let's see. Let me read this thing. Ah, there you are, Nuele. Now, what do we do? How do we do this? I'm reading the notes. Oh, there you go. Okay, perfect. Was I supposed to send you a request? Nope, that's it. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm learning. This will be a good one. I mean, they're all good, but this is going to be a really good one. We are going to be joined by the co-founder. Oh, hello. How
Hi,
are you?
I am well. How are you?
Oh, great. It's so nice to meet you on here. I'm excited to learn from you.
Well, I'm excited to learn from you as well. I guess it's what good morning for you. I've been looking forward to us having this conversation.
Yeah. Likewise, very much. I straightened my hair using your product today, and I thought, wow, it really does protect. It really does make it shiny. So I know everybody has been asking me every time I post about different hair looks, like, how did you get that hair? So welcome everyone. Please learn. I'm reading along to make sure that I know all of the right questions that I wanted to ask you, but just to introduce you, if I may. Hello, y'all. We are joined today by the co-founder of and chemist of this wonderful hair care line, Nuele. And do we call you Dr. Christine, or do you go by Dr. Is it Martey-Ochola?
So it's Dr. Martey-Ochola, but a lot of people just call me Dr. Christine. So that'll
Okay.
work. That'll
Okay, good.
either
Dr. Christine.
what to respond to.
Perfect. Okay, Dr. Christina, we're so glad that you're here because there is a lot of confusion and a lot of questions. And as a makeup artist, I don't focus on hair care. And there's a lot of ingredients that there's no crossover between the makeup world and the hair care world. And so I'm left going, I don't know. My answer is often, I don't know when people ask me questions about hair care. So very grateful to have you here. Well, actually, before we launch into any of the specific questions that people have written in to ask in the list that we've made together, is there anything just in general? Can you give us a little bit of a background? I love the story on the website about how it was that you came together to create this line and the women that you support in doing so. Could you give us a little background?
Sure. Thanks, Katie. Again, it's great to meet you in this forum. And I'm glad to see that Nuele works for your hair and that you have this look that you're carrying. You look beauteous, as Anne would say. That's her word.
Oh, thank
Background wise,
you. Thank
as
you
you
so
said, I'm a
much.
chemist. I started off as a food scientist, actually. I was very interested in how food is developed in industry. So my first degree was
Mhm.
it, and as I was reflecting on the history of all of this, I think back to the first business I started, which was selling organic orange juice and mango juice. So this
Yeah.
world of and natural, I guess, has been with me for a long time.
When was
And
that? Was that far back in your career, or is it like early on in life?
it was still college, like freshman in college. I was just trying to make money to pay
I
for
love
school.
that. But it's in your blood. Look, using
Yes,
nature. Yeah.
it is literally in the blood from when I was maybe 7 years old. My grandma was into naturopathic stuff. So I grew up seeing, natural products being used for treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious about it. And I think the food thing was maybe an extension of it. And then went into pharmaceutical chemistry to
Mm-hmm.
learn more really about how chemicals and so on were used in therapies.
Mm-hmm.
Away from that because I just had struggles with some of the just the way formulations are done, and then went into the hair care world, which I found, and both myself and my co-founder freedom. We're really, I mean, honestly, we're health nuts. We love talking about healthy living and healthy eating and healthy, all of that. And then the question became, what about healthy hair? Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the hair expresses what our health looks like. And we were both very interested in the hair industry and what was going on with women's health as related to hair. So, the history of this has been a blend of our passion co-founded, but then also my in chemistry, food, and so on, and Anne's interest in health. She's actually a nurse and has been on the receiving end of many sick people. So yeah, that's a little bit about.
Fabulous. It's the perfect joining of forces, interests, and skills to come together to make a line. Oh no, it's kind of a pixelated. I hope that folks at home can see and hear us both. Can you hear me okay, Dr. Christine?
Do I
I'm losing you.
do am I
Wait for just a sec. Sometimes at this time, ooh, I hear you a little bit. Sometimes at this time in the morning, I think since a lot of people are doing these, it can be a little bit slow and pixelated. Can you hear me okay?
hear you very clearly?
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. So maybe just a quick tidbit about the folks that you are helping to support through their growing of the ingredients and harvesting and what all of that would be a great backstory too.
Absolute. So, one of the things that, as for Noel, that we're really keen on is supporting not just women entrepreneurs, but all entrepreneurs. However, we've noted that there's a huge gap in the way women entrepreneurs are supported, and globally, right? It's not just in Africa. And so, as we were thinking through our ingredients and how we source them, we were very keen on fair trade practices. We're very keen on knowing the stories of the people who are really supplying us with. And so, several of these women are, I don't know if I zoned out on you. Did it go away for a little bit on my side?
Yeah, I'm
No.
sorry. I don't know if
Okay,
you can see
so
my face. I'm like, ah. I
yeah.
want to hang on your every word.
Okay. So many of these women are sometimes the breadwinners. They're worried about making sure their kids go to school, worried about making sure that they can take their kids to hospital if sick, being able to just take care of themselves, being able to put food on the table, just very, what I might call rudimentary things that anybody would want. And so we are very keen to support these enterprises, especially the farming communities, where you'll find that in many parts of Africa, most of the economy is sitting on an agrarian type platform.
Right.
So sustainable agriculture is critical, and really trying to stem the movement of people from, let's say, rural areas into urban areas. And one of the that is just to increase economic prowess, in a sense, right, in a rural area. So this is a way of really supporting local entrepreneurs, helping support education, for the next generation, really looking at healthy living, because it's that, extra couple of dollars, you can maybe be proactive with your health, right? And so
Absolutely.
we've seen is an improvement in health in the communities that we support for those young children and women and men and boys, of course. So we're really excited. We're excited to be able to bring forth a product that we believe in, that we've seen work, that we've seen improve people's lives, but also support the suppliers of our ingredients.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a surprisingly simple and like, why wouldn't every creator of a product look at the entire chain and care about the people who are growing the ingredients that are going to be used, and then you're going to formulate with them and then send them out, and in the hopes that everyone who uses them feels the goodness and the benefit of everything that was given to the crop as it was growing. It's like the symbiosis is apparent, but I think it's something that we're so disconnected from when we go to the store or we order something on Amazon and we're like, does it do what we think it does? We'll see. Order it, and maybe it makes our hair look more lustrous or our scalps feel better, but like the whole chain is so important. And so thank you. All right, so now I will get to the questions I'm going to read so that I don't miss anything. Okay, so question number one. And again, for those of you who have just joined us, we're speaking with co-founder Dr. Christina from Nuele. And let's see. So not all natural products are truly natural. We know this, right? How do you determine a truly natural hair care product? Oh, it's such a good question that everybody always asks about. How do I know it's actually natural? What does that mean?
It's tricky, isn't it? Because I would say that there's so many layers to that question.
Right.
No, on the one hand, it requires us to have to do some level of research. And I think the one thing that's nice, maybe now more so than 20, 30 years ago, is that there's access to information more readily than it
Mm-hmm.
was before. So when we are looking at labels, many times one of the things we could look for are words like extracts. You know, whenever you see the word extract, it starts to suggest that you're dealing with a natural product, right? Um, Many times you also have to look at certification because it's not always that you will find that certain products are regulated. Even in the hair care industry, many of our products are regulated unless you specifically say you have a therapeutic purpose, right? So if a
Right.
product is regulated, then you almost have to say, okay, fine, if I don't recognize this word, I don't recognize this ingredient, is there an organization out there that might be able to educate me more on it? So in the natural world, I think it's really important to look at certification because certifying bodies, you know, whether it's Made Safer World, EWG, and so on, they are that at least give that product an extra layer of clarity, if you want, on what an ingredient might be. Um, you know, organizations like Credo have gone out of their way
Right.
to really create what they call their dirty list, you know,
Right.
of ingredients not good for us. But they also talk about not only ingredients that are good for us, but try to clarify and explain what each ingredient that we know of looks like. So when that question comes up, I find that it's very important for us to be educated consumers and to read these labels, look for where it says natural. And even if it just says natural, I would say just go the extra step
Yeah.
for that it is natural. You know, for those of us who are in the natural and organic industry, we go out of our way to mention that, to document it, because it does cost more to bring to the
Right.
market natural and organic products. It does cost more to get the certification. So you'll find that many organizations will kind of go that extra step to say to label, and technically you should label it on your bottles anyway, right? So I'd say looking for specific extracts, looking for not just the biologic name that might be there, but saying, okay, there's this biologic name, but is this product specifically indicating that these were from natural products?
Right.
This bottle, for example, or this sample, for example, or soap, conditioner, or whatever it is, specifically saying that they have natural, but now going the next step. Because ultimately, you know, you will find that companies, generally speaking, want to do the right thing. But there's also that economic component of, is it going to be cheaper for me to use vitamin E that is, or vitamin E that was, you know, extracted from a plant? It's still
Right.
vitamin E, right? And people are looking for vitamin E, but which one it
Right.
is. So if you know you're looking for vitamin E, which is an excellent ingredient, um, if it says extracted from plants, then you know that that's a natural vitamin E. If it just says vitamin E or it just says tocopherol, then you're
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not so sure. So you want to go
Oh,
to
that's
the
a very good point that I didn't even realize. Thank you.
natural.
And I really love that, you know, companies like you who lay it all out on your website, because I think there's so many folks who don't don't want to be bothered with understanding an ingredient list, and I don't blame them. A lot of, you know, it's a huge investment of time and energy into researching. So to rely upon companies like yours and stores like Credo and all the stores that have like a dirty list, that's such a huge help. So for consumers who don't want to have to to dig into each and every ingredient on each list. So, you know, anything I'm sharing, you know, has been vetted, which is like hugely important to me.
It makes a
Thank
big
you for
difference.
that.
Yeah, there's so much information out there. And the question is like, which of it is even real, right? It can be overwhelming. And sometimes it's like, all I wanted was a shampoo. Now I got to go read 1,000 pages. You're kidding me?
Exactly. I need
And
to like write a dissertation at the end of my shampoo research. Yeah, it's overwhelming. I mean, it's like at the end of all the research someone does, they might as well come out with their own product because they've dug so deep. It can be very overwhelming.
you know, it's interesting because unfortunately, people sometimes are surprised by not knowing what's real and what's not. And so many people are now just making product at home, you know, which is a great thing. If you make product at home and you're happy with what you make, I mean, my goodness, that's like fresh food for your hair, right?
Absolutely.
But not everybody has that opportunity. And so I just
Right.
think that, you know, if we're going to go into this industry and really look at long-term health,
Right.
it's important to educate our consumers, and so that people can make a good decision as to what's there, because you know there are many natural products, but it's not to say that every natural product is for everyone, isn't it? So
Exactly. Such a good point. All right, looking at the next question. By the way, where are you right now? I didn't even ask you that.
I'm actually in Pennsylvania. I
Oh,
live
East Coast.
40 miles east of Philadelphia, so I live in farm country.
How nice is that?
Yes,
Farm
it's
country.
beautiful, especially at such a time. It's out tractors, lots of farms in this area.
What a difference for those who are watching from any much more city vibe lifestyle. That's so nice. It kind of
Yeah,
goes along with what we're talking about, like the true
absolutely.
farmers. Okay,
Yeah.
so what you might have, well, what are certain ingredients to look out for that are bad? I know that's a difficult question, but if there are a top, I get asked that all the time, and I kind of hem and haw and like talk in circles around it. But for hair, maybe there are some specifics. Would there be like 3 top ingredients that you would say in hair care, please stay away from?
If I would say top three, um, you know, we always hear about sulfates, parabens, and alcohols.
Right.
Those three get a lot of prime time because generally speaking, they dehydrate hair, you know, so they you'll have a situation where hair gets really dry on the one hand. They cause inflammation, you know, so the parabens can cause inflammation in
Oh,
in addition to their various toxicities, for example, with our sulfates. And the toxicities are not necessarily just the sulfate, but some of the compounds that they break down into. And
right.
the issue with that is then you run into um, scalp issues, and sometimes even your hair itself becoming very dry, sometimes having lots of flyaways, split ends, becoming very porous, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and then now the job becomes to try and fix it back.
Right.
So, I mean, sulfates, the parabens, alcohols tend to be, you know, really, you know, the most common ones that are talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And those three, you know, it can be a little tricky because sometimes when you alcohol, usually when we look at our ingredient list, if you see OL, usually that symbolizes that there's an alcohol in there. Okay,
Oh, uh-huh.
ethanol, whatever it is. But it's not to say that all alcohols are bad. And
Right.
so and when we look at these ingredients, don't necessarily toss out a product just because it says OL at the end. There are good alcohols, like, for example, cetyl
Right.
alcohol, which is, you know, but generally speaking, alcohols are not good for our hair. Sulfates not, and parabens not. In
Okay.
addition to various types of colors,
Mhm.
synthetic colors that really dehydrate our hair and cause it to break. Those would be examples of. Mhm.
Okay, that's a great short list for people to be on the lookout for. And also confusing because the alcohol thing, I love that you broke it down because I've heard that throughout the years. And then every single product that I look at, even the ones that are formulated by people I know and trust, will say alcohol on it. So it's like, no, Katey, remember that there's certain alcohols that are okay.
Yes.
Cetearyl, is that how you say it?
It's Cetearyl. So
Okay.
cetearyl. That's not a bad alcohol. You know, it actually with when it's in a shampoo, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and you wash your hair, it actually helps with strengthening your hair strand. You know what I mean? So it would be one that's beneficial for your hair.
Okay, good. All
Mm-hmm.
right, let's see. So conversely, what are some of the best ingredients that you would suggest folks look for? And would that differ depending upon hair type?
Absolutely. I find that to be a very hard question because it varies, right?
Right, right,
Varies on hair type. It varies on what you're really looking for.
right.
If you're looking for a lot of moisture, you know, then you would look for products, for example, that have the aloes in them, might have like shea butters in them,
Mm-hmm.
uh, may have some coconut in it, and so on, right?
Right.
Um, if you're looking for example, maybe your scalp is one that gets a lot of inflammation, or you have like eczema or something, then you again you might look for like an aloe type product, or you may look for rosemary oil,
I've
to add
heard
in there.
rosemary is really good
You may
for the scalp.
find people things like tea tree oil,
Mm-hmm.
with many of the essential oils, are really good for the if you're looking to just kind of have very, very deep moisture in a condition, one may look for like glycerols
Mm-hmm.
in foundation. But again, that varies. For example, for
Mm-hmm.
me, um, when tea tree oil first became a thing, I was like, oh my goodness, I need tea tree oil. It turns out I'm super allergic to it. But
You're
most
allergic to, I was going to ask if they're not good for everyone.
people do really well with it. So I think
Right,
if, I always worry about saying what are some of the best ones because it
right.
just depends what you're looking for. My hair, I have locks, for example.
Yeah.
So conditioners might not always work really well for me because if I
Right,
use a conditioner, it'll get stuck in my hair. And
right.
if I don't dry my hair well, I can end up getting mold and like all this stuff, right?
Yep.
So, or even certain shampoos, because of having locks, requires me to use like very moisturizing shampoos. But if you have very oily hair, right,
Right.
then great product might be a shampoo that has seaweed in it, which seaweed is great because then seaweed actually helps remove some of that extra oil.
Hmm.
So, a good understanding of kind of what you're looking for is important before then coming back and saying which is the best natural
Right.
ingredient there for me. But there's a lot of phenomenal ones. Typically, I would say look for some essential oils in there because they do add strength and nutrients. Look for vitamins because I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I was always made to think that hair was just dead.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like a thing that's just there. But hair is
Right.
alive. Hair like reflects what's going on with our health. And so just like the rest of our body, it needs nutrients. It needs to be treated well, right? So you almost want to look at that like healthy breakfast for your hair, right? So it's just you want the nutrients, you want your vitamins, your minerals, you need proteins in there. For example, use moringa oil, and moringa has protein,
Mhm.
so really actually thinking about holistic nutrition for your hair is an important way to move forward.
And both when applied at the root and through the whole length, it's important no matter where. Or is it more important in one area more than another?
It depends. So you might find that say if someone shampoos their hair a lot, right? And they use a shampoo that foams, not necessarily a cleanser that doesn't foam.
Mhm.
That if you do that a lot, then you're stripping a lot of oils from your
Right.
hair. So
Right.
that means that you probably need to replenish the hair a lot, right? Now,
Right.
I might find some people who their scalps are very oily. but their hair is not as oily. So in
Right.
that, you'll find that you may want to moisturize with oil, maybe a little bit more your hair, but not your scalp.
Got it.
People
That's
have very oily scalps, but their hair doesn't seem to absorb that oil.
Mhm.
So in that regard, they would not moisturize their scalp, but they will only moisturize their hair. So it just kind of depends on what's
Right.
going on, right? And then for some people, the length of their hair might feel and look really healthy, but their tips are kind of frayed and split. So in that
Yeah.
regard, they then need to use a product or a moisturizer of some sort that would ensure or increase the health of the tips of their hair. So to answer your question,
Right.
it really just depends on what's going on
It
with, yeah, it's a deep relationship with our hair.
It is. And it changes throughout your lifetime, depending upon your hormonal health and where you live in the world and what water your hair is absorbing or your scalp's being introduced to, right? So many
You know,
variables.
um, when I go to a hotel,
Yeah.
I always say I want to go to a room that has water that has been softened. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, because you can always get a room that has water that's been softened, because softened water is better for your hair than hard water, you
And would they
know?
know that at the hotel?
Yes. It's a little trick.
I'm going to
They,
use that for if I ever get to travel again. I'm definitely going to use that. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Hard
yeah.
water. That's what I've always heard. Traveling anywhere or living in a house with like well water or anywhere that's hard water has ruined my hair. Oh, let's see. Someone's writing. Oh, was it weird for you for just a second? I lost you for a second there.
Yeah.
But now that we're back, I see that there's a question. Should we take a question from the audience?
Let's take a
So, oh no, I don't hear you. Say it again. I'm sorry.
Oh, let's take a question.
Okay, perfect. So, hi, I know rosemary is really good for growing hair. Any other suggestions for thinning hair?
For thinning hair. I would say that you can use, we use clary sage as one of our ingredients, and but you've got to dilute it. Please don't use things concentrated, right? So clary sage, I would say if you have thinning hair, use try not to um, over handle your hair, because if you when you do your hair, if you're touching it all the time, it actually weakens it. So moisturizing, use aloe quite a bit, and what you can do is take fresh aloe and then
Mm-hmm.
slice out, the hard part of it, and take the pulp of
Mm-hmm.
it, put it in a refrigerator for about 30 minutes just to cool it off a little bit, and then um, kind of rub it onto your scalp,
Okay.
and it'll be that kind of thick sap on your
Right.
scalp. Put,
Yeah.
put a cap on, put a cap on, and what it'll do is really push the nutrients from the aloe into your hair follicles. And why that's important is that if your hair is thinning, sometimes there might be toxins in there that you want to kind of pull out.
Mm-hmm.
You also want to push a lot of nutrition into your hair follicles to kind of stimulate them to,
Right. It's all about that.
yeah, stimulate them to grow. And if you do that kind of treatment maybe once a week, that would be good. Certainly up your vitamins and minerals, and then also water, like drinking a lot of water to detox.
Mm-hmm.
Some studies, and I mean, again, these are just studies. I'm not saying they're fully vetted, but using things like charcoal, activated charcoal,
Mm-hmm.
just rub
In your diet.
your face or on your scalp actually helps with detox, because sometimes thinning hair is symbolic of detox. Now, the one thing I did want to mention is that if there's something going on hormonally,
Right.
to thinning hair, so it may not necessarily be that you're not using the right product or anything. I just want to check to see if there's something going on the hormone side of things. Now, that said, if
Good
there
point.
you don't want to use any product that could have like endocrine disruptors,
Right.
anything your hormones, because then it could enhance thinning of hair. And
And my
that's
understanding, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
you go ahead. You go ahead.
I was just going to ask you a follow-up question because that's such a good point. My understanding of anything, at least in makeup and skincare, that could be endocrine system disruption would be, or disrupting would be something that has phthalates in it, which is either plasticizers or synthetic fragrance. Not all synthetic fragrance. Now there are safe synthetic fragrances.
Right.
I don't know that much about them, but is that the same in hair care?
It's absolutely the same in hair care. Absolutely the same in hair care. And the reason why is because ultimately the connection between our hair and the rest of our body is our scalp. So our scalp skin
Mm-hmm.
uh, is very similar to our facial skin.
Right.
Uh, However, sometimes it can be more sensitive. You
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes you'll find people say, I put it on my face and it didn't do anything, but when I put it on my scalp, it was burning, right? Or vice versa.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
So it's very important that as we're using products that might have endocrine disruptors, like you said, the phthalates, um, we think about what the potential long-term impacts might be, which, kidney health, liver health, our reproductive systems can get impacted, cancer,
Mm-hmm.
um, and some hormonal disruptions. It can affect our moods, and just our long-term health. So
It's so good to hear you say that. I'm sorry that I keep interrupting you. I know it's like the 2 second delay. I just want to say it's so wonderful to hear you, a chemist, saying these things because I know a lot of times people look at those of us in the clean beauty movement and they're like, they're just all hysterical and they're, making these claims. And I always say, but if we don't know for sure that the other stuff is safe, why not make the best choice that we can and use, for the most part, plant-based materials? So to have a chemist, a more science-brained individual who's saying, this is important, it does affect you systemically, is so key. So thank you.
it absolutely does. It absolutely does. And it's one of those situations where, for a long time, not much effort went into studying the long-term impacts of some of these ingredients that are used for making us look amazing, right?
Right.
Because these industries were driven by what we want, right? So say, I want my hair to this, or I want my face to that, and of
Right.
course, someone's going to be like, sure, I can figure out how to do
Right.
it. But the question is, what does that mean for the long term?
Right.
And like I mentioned to you earlier, just having studied chemistry and then pharmaceutical chemistry for a long time and really beginning to understand what some of these chemicals can do really got us thinking about what does that mean to us and the products that we use on a daily basis, not necessarily thinking about what they could do to us in the long term. Because unfortunately, we might have chemicals that are retained in our bodies, like in our fat cells, for many, many years. We won't feel the impact immediately, but we feel it later. So,
Oh, that's such a good point. That's the whole crux of everything I always talk about because I can't tell you, even my mother will say, like, I've been using this lipstick is fine. I'm fine. I'm like, but we don't know long term. And we also don't know the cumulative effects. As you say, we use it every day. Sometimes, like with the lip balm, we might put it on 10 times a day, times 45 years of our lives, coupled with pollution that we breathe and in our water and all that stuff. So
absolutely.
yeah, right. Okay. Thank you for that. Let me look at the next line of questions. You already kind of answered this one, but what do toxins and chemicals do to your hair over time?
Um, I would say two things, right? One, when toxins accumulate in our hair, I always like to, and I use my fingers a lot. Can you
Me
tell?
too. Love
So
it.
our hair integrity is supposed to be like nice and tight, right? But when we start putting things in there that interfere with the integrity of our hair, it starts to pop open. So you might find that toxins, especially if they're toxins that are not very soluble. It might be minerals, different types of minerals or different chemicals that don't dissolve in water very well. They start to fill in to your hair shaft, right? So your hair shaft starts to open, and that's called becoming more porous. So your hair shaft is porous, and the more porous your shaft is, then the weaker your hair is. So one of the things that you don't want to do is to have a high accumulation of toxins in your hair shaft. That translates into hair breakage, it translates into limp hair. It translates into loss of protein and loss of keratin from hair. And so, that again translates into sometimes thinning. There's a question about thinning that came up. So, with time, you start to see thinning. You can also see things such as alopecia occur because the toxins late now in the hair follicles, can translate into seberitis, lots of itching, lots of itching, and ultimately hair loss. Now on the physical side, the things that we would see if we're exposed to significant toxins.
Perfect answer. Thank you. Okay, let's see. And by the way, we have somebody who just wrote in and said, yes, I'm a 2-time breast cancer survivor. We're so glad that you're with us. And yeah, this stuff is important. That's extremely important. Let's see. So what are the physical issues caused by, oh, you did already answer that. What are short-term and long-term benefits of feeding your hair clean ingredients? I think you kind of touched on that, but speak to that for us, if you would.
Short-term benefits would be starting to see your hair really come to life again, like in terms of the physical space, right? Also, short-term benefits is minimizing the strain that your body has to go through to clear toxins. Something we don't think about a lot is that these toxins get absorbed into our bloodstream. And if they do get absorbed into our bloodstream, then our liver has to clear it, our kidney has to clear it, and so on. That uses energy. So sometimes you could use certain products and you literally feel like you have no energy, and it's your body working hard to try and clear all of this. But remember, your body things as foreign things, right? So it can mount an immune response and stuff like that. So
that's such a good point.
Summarizing it real quick, but those would be short-term. The examples of short-term benefits, the ones that we can see, aka our hair feeling good, like you're beautiful today. There's that short-term benefit of, wow, I see that. But then the long-term is having better hair for a period of time. Sometimes we'll do things hair that give us that benefit that seems like a great benefit, but it's only for a day, or it's good for a week, or it's good for 3 months. The question is, what can I do to get me good for the next year, 2 years, 3 years?
Yes.
When we decide we're going to eat right, we're not eating right just for right, we're eating right for the future. So we look at it as eating right for your hair for the future. So if we can make our hair healthy, then we're not going to need all these extra things to give us what we're looking for. But also, we protect our liver, we protect our kidney, we protect our hormone, our endocrine system, we protect our reproductive system, we protect our skin, and therefore our longer term benefit is good health. And you mentioned something earlier, Katey, about this thing of the lipstick, right? So we might use lipstick for 45 years. I mean, I'll put it out there, I'm 50 years old, right? When I was 20 years old, I could bounce back from certain things. Right now, I don't bounce back that easily, right? And the question comes, right? At the age of 20, our immune systems are just working. They're
robust
like that. Absolutely, I might have dumped a whole bunch of stuff on me and not necessarily impact. Now that I'm 50, I really have to think about it. Like I end up wearing it a little bit more.
Yes. 100%. All of this is so well put. Yeah, exactly.
So imagine if at the age of 20, I decided I was only going to use the naturals and the organics and so on and so forth. I would preserve myself such that by the time I'm 50, by the time I'm 70, hopefully by the time I'm 100, I'm still rocking it, right?
This is so good. I want every mother of a child to see this and every child to see this. Like, yes.
But imagine if I decided I'm just going to use all sorts of toxic stuff, not necessarily intentionally, but I'm just going to go for what's out there without
Right.
about what I'm using. What
Right.
happens is that at the age of about 50, when our bodies start to speak their own language, as I say,
Hmm.
they're going to it's going to start responding differently because, and you mentioned accumulation, you know,
Right.
these things accumulate. If we use products that have heavy metals in them, heavy metals accumulate. So then we start to feel those impacts. Then we start running into kidney disease, especially if you're dealing with metals, and metals will typically come into our products through hair colors,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, whether lipsticks or and stuff like that. There are a lot of masks that are being made for hair now,
Right.
and many you know, they're using clays and so on. And the question is, what's in that clay? Does it have any
Yeah.
heavy metal? And you know, if we're using clays, we're keeping it on our scalp or our hair for a while, so it's absorbing.
Right.
Um, so you know, to answer your question, I mean, it can be, that's a broad, I guess, a long topic, but um, it's important to, let me say, eat right for your hair, just like we eat
Mm-hmm.
for our body.
Right.
But if you're not eating right for your hair, then you're not eating right for your body, and the long-term impacts can certainly be problematic. Long-winded way of answering your question, but hopefully we got.
Oh, so well put. Someone, yeah, just wrote, yes, she explains it so well. And someone else said, yes, it's true, all of that she's saying, and also it's never too late to start, which is true. I
Look,
think about
I was a late bloomer.
same here. I was, oh my gosh, the number of, I had a dressing table that I made my parents make for me in my bedroom at age 12. Who is it who asked for a dressing table for their 12th birthday with a chair and a skirt my mom made for it? And then I piled it high with every drugstore crap filled product I could get. And I would slather all these disgusting things on myself every night for my whole life. And not until I came to this realm to about a decade ago did I start saying, what did I put on myself? So
Well,
yeah.
the nice thing is that you kind of already knew what you wanted to do when you grew up at a very young age. It's phenomenal.
Right.
The investment, you know.
Totally. Yeah, I had to test everything at that point, so I would know what I didn't want at this point.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
such good points, Dr. Christine. Okay, let's see. I love this one. What steps has Nuele taken to produce a clean product?
I would say, in short, we've been very intentional about what we're putting into our products. Absolutely. We believe less is more. You know, we don't necessarily, we're not going to put something in there just to make it look like we've
Right.
put thought into it just for the sake of making people think we've put thought into something. We're very
Right.
intentional. What's each ingredient doing, and ensuring that it's in there in the volumes that will make an impact in someone's
Mm-hmm.
hair. So that's been significant. Like I mentioned earlier, having a relationship with our suppliers and really thinking through in a sense, the authenticity of the products that we create. We don't believe in dilution where it's not necessary,
Mm-hmm.
because we're very keen to ensure people get the value that they're anticipating uh, with their products. So with formulation, we looked at ensuring that we're not including toxins in our products, to ensure we're not including ingredients that are known to be problematic. I mean, sometimes you might not know, right? What could happen if there's no research done on a given ingredient. So we worked hard, and it took us for this particular product probably 5 years to get to a point where we felt, yes, we are ready to go to market with this thing. We've studied it, we've
That's
gone,
incredible.
and I think that that's really important for us, is ensuring that
Mm-hmm.
what we formulate speaks to what we claim.
I love that. And it's unique. I mean, across the board, we look at like hundreds of, probably thousands of hair care lines that are not doing this, that are not looking at the importance and integrity of each ingredient. And And there's a lot of that your name here kind of, you can buy a pre-made packaged product and stick your name on it, and that's the antithesis of what you are.
Absolutely.
That's incredible. Okay, let's see. What makes Nuele's formulation superior to other clean hair care? What
I
would you
would
say?
say opting to ensure that our ingredients um, have the same level of consistency. We have suppliers that we vetted significantly, and part of it to ensure was that we held the same values. And the reason I bring that up is, if you have a supplier who doesn't maintain the same values as you, they might change who they source from and
Right.
don't necessarily have as strong as value as you do. It would interfere with what you're receiving, right, as your perceived value ingredient.
Such a good point.
So for us, as we think about the superiority of our product, it's not just about the less is more, like I mentioned earlier, but really thinking through our purity, thinking through quantities. We don't necessarily believe that you have to use you know, um, uh, I don't know, like a quarter size volume of stuff if all you size,
Right.
because again, I talked about the integrity of them. If we're making formulations that have a whole lot of stuff in them that we don't need, then now we're moving our hair from here to here.
All right.
And that translates into now us as a company having to work hard to bring you back to here. And what's the point of that?
That's such a good point. Yeah.
Standpoint, we also think about minimizing our carbon footprint. You know, we don't have to put stuff in there that's not necessary. Then why should we? Right? And that adds value to the product because it minimizes the negative health impacts that a consumer would use. And I bring that up as a differentiator because you'll find many hair care products that might even have the same hours as their core, and then they add in a bunch of other stuff. And the question is, what's that doing? Is it doing anything? And that means now you have to work hard to clear it. And why expend energy unnecessarily? So we're big on health and really thinking through the health impact of the ingredients we use.
Such high integrity that you have. It's amazing. That was our last question. Was that, am I right? Yes, that was our last question.
Roll them in because I know we had some questions come through.
Yeah, shall I look through here and see what questions have been asked? Oh, wow, lots of, okay. Lots of people saying that they love how you explain things. I think you answered this, but can you please advise on moisturizer for dry hair? You kind of did, but was there anything else to touch on?
I would say that if you're looking to moisturize dry hair, you may decide to use a leave-in conditioner or not. If you do decide to use a leave-in conditioner, after shampooing your hair, put in your leave-in conditioner and then put your oil-based moisturizer so that you can lock in the moisture. Sometimes if you have dry hair and you go from a shampoo that might be a shampoo that strips your hair. So a shampoo that foams a lot. If you have dry hair, a shampoo that foams a lot is not your friend. You want what I'm going to call a cleanser, right? Something that will definitely remove dirt and so on from your hair, but not necessarily foaming a lot. That you don't remove even the little oil that you already sebum that you already have, right? And then you can now layer in I mean, not necessarily knowing what kind of hair you have, but you could use the shays, you could use the aloes, you could use the moringas, like I'd said. Argan oils are very good rosemaries are good. You want to kind of shy away from anything with petroleum.
Right.
Don't we don't encourage the use of petroleum-based products for hair because petroleum will build up. It'll make it feel as if your hair is moist, because for a moment it feels nice and
Right.
cushy.
It coats it.
Then after a while, it's like cozy, like a nice pumpkin pie. But after a while, it's like, oh my gosh, I really got to clear all this sugar, right? But so
Yes.
lay off the petroleum. Coconut oil is an interesting one. It's very good for penetrating the hair, but it actually doesn't moisturize very well, right? So if you
No.
want to, again, deeply moisturize, you wash, condition, and then add on some of the, what I might call the butters for your hair.
And they're in here. Yeah. I
So,
mean, my hair really does love it.
um,
And I can rarely use oil on my hair. I use a surprisingly large amount actually too. I was afraid it was going to get stringy, but it's not. It's just nice. It's like it somehow also makes it feel a little thicker. It's a great blend. Okay, let's see.
I'm glad you
I'm
said that.
sorry.
The reason we did that from a moisturizing standpoint was we were looking for oils. Oils are not usually thought of as moisturizers per se, but we
Right.
were looking for oils that can also retain moisture in the hair. You know,
Mm,
oils, oil and water don't mix very well, right? So it's
right.
like if you have the oil, then the water wants to leave, or vice versa. And the question became, could we have oil mix that can coexist with moisture, and
Right.
that's what we did with Nuele. That's why your hair feels plumper
It
because
does.
water in there, but it also has in there.
Amazing. And I loved, I think I said in a post that I made about the first time I tried it, I looked at your website and I thought, oh, these women have much thicker hair than I do. And I used to have really thick hair and I've lost a lot of it as I've gotten older. And now it's a completely different ballpark for me to like learn about what products work. And I remember having thick hair and I could use oils and it worked really well. And I was like, I don't know. Seeing women with really thick textured hair too and locks. And I was like, this is going to make me flat. But it didn't. It just, like you said, it plumped it. Such an interesting experience. I didn't expect. Okay, somebody asked, how long do you leave aloe on your scalp?
Okay,
With
great question. Great question. You can, I mean, so this is anecdotal. Okay, this is anecdotal. You at a minimum, you want to have it on there for about an hour. Now, please note, we're talking about fresh aloe, right? The fresh aloe that you got from the grocery store. Um, Please, before you do that though, test a small part just to make sure you're not allergic or anything.
right, right.
So if you're not allergic or anything, put it on there. A minimum of 1 hour is really nice for conditioning your scalp and hair.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've had it go up to like 4 hours under a cap,
Yeah.
and it's phenomenal. And then you just wash it off. Don't shampoo after you when you're done. Just wash it off, but wash it off really, really well. And then
Mm-hmm.
and go ahead and use your moisturizer and style from there.
Perfect. Okay.
Like
Um,
about once a week,
ah,
for a period of
gotcha.
time until the hair is well moistened.
And then could you over moisten if you continue that process once a week, or do you think the hair will even out, or what do you think? People should be watching for limpness if that's over moisturizing.
Great question here. If it's over moisturized, then certainly limpness, but it also depends on the hair type, right? It
Got
also,
it.
like if your hair type tends to be one that's just naturally maybe coarser or more just curlier, then it'll take a while till you get to that point and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I'm always over moisturized.
Right.
The hair tends to be thinner or straighter, then there is a possibility of over moisturization. At that point, you might go like maybe once a month or something
Okay.
like that. But I would say at least an hour, because you want to give your scalp enough time to just take in all the nutrients that are in there.
Excellent. And so the same person, thank you for writing in my blue mist. They just wrote, would organic aloe gel work if I can't get fresh aloe?
Would organic aloe gel work? Yes, it would. Just check to see what they have in there, especially from a preservative perspective.
Right.
If they have in there that maybe they've used an organic essential oil as a preservative, then absolutely go ahead. So that's the only thing I'll just check to make sure that the preservative is one that you agree with.
Good point. And then maybe one last question. I love the sense of this. Can you describe, it's like, it's very earthy, and a lot of hair, I mean, I cannot stand synthetic scents, and even like the safe synthetic scents I can't handle. This, when I didn't know what to expect when I opened it up. I was like, oh, there's flowers on here. I'm going to smell. It has some floralness to it, but it was mainly just like earthy, and I don't know. Can you tell me what is it that I'm smelling exactly?
So what you're smelling, it's very strange, right? So has moringa just has its own unique smell. And you're talking about how do you know if something is natural versus not, right? So moringa has its very unique smell. Part of what you're smelling is a blend of the moringa and the essential oils. Okay. If, for example, and this is hypothetical, if, for example, I went into my lab and I got all the potential different chemicals that I've naturally found in moringa oil and I brought them together, I probably would not get to that smell, because when you do extraction of the moringa, you're also extracting, other plant parts, right, that will impart smell to the ingredients that you have. So your smelling is a blend of moringa with that rosemary and clary sage in the ratios that give it just that extra, almost musk smell.
It is.
Flower, but not quite. And when we first started off, we had a somewhat strong essential oil smell to it, and we got feedback like, I like it, but I'm not so sure, and so we had to work on that, because there, some, in our case, we don't add fragrances because some people have fragrances can trigger asthma, they can trigger all sorts of things, right? All sorts of allergies. And so we wanted to ensure that people don't that we don't prevent the product just because of like a strong aroma. Plus people like things, so you don't want to have a competition with what the rest of your body.
That's such a good point. Yeah. And when we get back to being able to hug people when we see them, you don't want somebody else's hair scent stuck on you. Although this one I wouldn't mind if somebody, sometimes with synthetic scents you experience that, but this is such a nice one. And my boyfriend, who's really sensitive to scents, has only said, "Ooh, you smell good." So I it's like, thank you for giving me something I can use around him. And any last minute anything that you want to share? Any last minute questions anyone has? I know that I'm going to figure out how to put this in my highlights so that people can watch it from here till eternity, because you've really shared some amazing things, and I want to make sure people who didn't have time at this hour to catch us can hear your gems. Oh, I didn't even realize we get only an hour. It's telling me we have 1 minute 54 seconds remaining.
Okay, so I mean, I believe we're going to save it on our site, so we'll make sure you have a copy of it and you can retain it. What I would say in some, first off, thank you. Thanks for just opening this opportunity for us to have a conversation on a very important topic. I would say that what Anne and I discuss a lot is the importance of, I mean, in this case, women's health, but all health, right? And would encourage anyone who's using any product, to really ask the question, how does this align with great health for me? What I'm using that will ensure that I maintain good health. When you asked a question about our formulation, when we formulate, when we're thinking about what tomorrow could look like, we're asking, what does the health of the person who's using our product look like now? It looks. I think also thinking about carbon footprint, when we think about environmental sustainability, as we think about products and what we use, what are we doing that could positively impact the environment in which we exist, so kind of being very intentional about being clean with the products that we use, because our bodies will respond to it, you
Right.
know, and really trying not to jeopardize our long-term health for immediate perceived beauty, you know, relevance.
So good.
And so I want to thank you for this, and I would love for us to have more conversation on
Let's
clean
please.
ingredients for whether it's hair or face or whatever the case may be.